All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Doula Darcy podcast. I am very excited, and I probably say that every time, but this episode I'm calling it right now. It's going to be good. I have Jillian Anderson here with me today. Jillian Anderson is an amazing copywriter that I met on the internet. And I've decided this is my theme for 2025 and even the last half of 2024. My favorite people in my life, I met on the internet now. We were just at the birth worker retreat, all talking about how funny it is that you go to events now and you're like, I'm just going to be hanging out with people I met on the internet all week.
I love it.
Yeah. So we literally met in DMs on Instagram, and here we are. I've been on your podcast. You were a guest expert in my doula village. And we're very similar, I think, in the way that we think. We're very similar in the way that we've built our businesses. And I just think you have so much to share with doulas. Well, when you came in and spoke to my doula village about copywriting, that sounds like you and sells way better. That line alone is so good. Everybody loved it. Is one of just a very popular replay that we have in our video library. And what I love about your work and the way you also have your own podcast called the Vital Mother Podcast. I've been talking so much lately and then in the past couple of weeks about AI and how it's a tool that doulas should be using. But I'm, like, begrudgingly saying that because I believe so firmly in, like, authenticity and marketing from your real voice, and I know that you do too, and you're a copywriter, so you probably hate AI, but there's so much that AI is a tool doulas can be using, but copy is such an area that doulas really need to focus on. And by copy, the words on your website, the words in your emails, your social media posts. And I know why I think that, but Jillian, can you tell us why you believe copywriting is such a key part of connecting with clients?
Sure,
Like,
sure. Yeah,
what
I would love to dive into that. It's an interesting topic. There's a lot of different opinions online. There are the people who are really going full speed ahead into leveraging AI. There are the people who have some trepidation, and
Mhm.
for good reason, I believe. And I think that there's a way to use certain features of AI, and I'll get into specifics of how
Yeah.
I do things. But in terms of copy and why it's so important, what I can say is that copy, first, I built my business purely on copy before I had even invested in branding, before I had invested in quite a few things that people say are critical, fundamental. I was heavily experimenting with different offers, and I had crossed over $300,000 in sales in my business, not in a year, but just total revenue
Mhm.
generated with just purely my ideas and the copy to support them.
Yeah.
And what I really believe is that copywriting is this kind of a key that you can turn and open a lock. And what I mean by that is it's motivational writing at its core. And motivational probably isn't the right word, but emotionally moving writing. It's activating.
Yeah.
And so if you have two doulas and one doula's copy is very flat and very factual and very data, like just listing certain things, and you have another doula who is using customer psychology to identify her customers' inner landscape, her mind, why she is looking for a doula, whether it's a birth doula, a postpartum doula, whether it's a sleep consultant, right? The doula or the business who is using that customer psychology to take her reader on a journey of making a decision, then that really is my job as a copywriter. I love to guide a decision. I'm guiding a decision. I'm guiding a decision making process. I fully believe that the reader has her own free will to click the button or not. She can sign up or not. She
Right.
can hire a doula or not. She can do whatever she wants. But I love to guide these decisions, and I really love to guide them because I know the transformation that's available or
Mhm.
the service that's available or the experience that's available when a woman says yes to something like a postpartum doula, for example, right?
Yeah.
I know she's gonna have a better experience. So the doulas or the business owners in general who are using copywriting intelligently, it's just proven more clicks, more signups, more sales, more you're gonna be booked easier.
And it I think that's true for any industry, but it goes double for doulas because people hire a doula, and I always say this, you could put up 2 doula resumes, but people are gonna hire the doula that they connect with, that energetically, that like their personality, some emotion comes, there's some kinda connection, whether it's reading the copy on your website or your social media posts or meeting in person for coffee. It's it's an emotional decision to hire a doula, so the way you express yourself in person, but I think copywriting for a doula, the magic is making your copy sound like you and getting your authentic voice to come through so that people know who you are, what you do, why you do it, and it elicits an emotion from them that they wanna hire you, and it's magical if you can tap into that and really get into that in your copy, and I say this all the time. I see so many doula websites that are like, "A doula is a Greek word, and it means woman servant," like, that it's so boring, and but if you have a website that tells the story of your birth or why you became a doula that, like, elicits emotion, it's going to be so much more effective. And I love that one of the things actually I learned from reading your social media post, Jillian, and this was after we had had several Zooms and I was on your podcast and you were in my membership. You wrote an Instagram post about how you had a free birth with your
Yeah.
son. I was like, "Oh my god." And of course, because 'cause you're who you are, the post was so interesting. It was like, I can't even remember. I should have looked it up, but you were, like, talking with a neighbor or something and mentioned you had a free birth and her face, like, fell.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
such a great post, but I think there's just so much we can talk about here because of just the way you have structured your business to fit your life as a mom. And I think one of the things I really like about you is and we haven't even really talked about this, but I feel like we both are just, I don't, this normal way of doing business over here, like, we don't do that. Uh, you and I just don't do that, Jillian. We just don't. And I don't know. So it comes through in your copy. And I feel like finding out that you had a free birth, and then you did tell me on the phone that you did hire a postpartum doula, which that's something I really wanna hear about because that's just as a postpartum doula myself, that makes me so happy. I think another, thing we have in common is we both decided to start our businesses after having our first baby. So can
Yeah.
you talk about that moment for you?
Yeah, it's really beautiful because I have a background as an abdominal massage specialist.
Oh.
So when I was a young woman, I became a massage therapist. I did a little bit of college and I was an English major and a psych minor, which is so crazy full circle because copywriters are
Oh, yeah.
exactly that. I dropped out of college. I couldn't pass algebra 2 or something. I was trying so hard. I was taking night classes with all the adults and trying to pass this class, and I ended up dropping out, and I went to school to become a massage therapist. I then specialized and became an abdominal massage specialist. And some of your listeners may be familiar with Rosita Arvigo and the Arvigo Institute of my
Mm.
abdominal massage. So I studied with her, and then I started to specialize in that technique. And because I was surrounded from the age of 20 with doulas, midwives,
Ah,
birth workers, I literally knew the ins of birth. Like I
yeah.
knew what was going to go on. I heard a lot of bad stories. I heard about the outcomes. I heard about all these women coming in and doing like postpartum trauma stuff. I heard from postpartum doulas. I heard from birth doulas. I was fascinated. So I just happened to be this, like, little wild card 20-year-old, like, in the birth world,
Yeah.
and I
Did you
actually
also I have to interrupt. Did you also have abdominal massage clients, like, that were dealing with
yes,
trauma and
yes,
birth
yes.
stuff? Yeah.
I ended up specializing more so in the postpartum recovery
Mhm.
aspect, and I ended up seeing a lot of women who had quote unquote emergency cesareans.
Mhm.
And I realized these women, because I would work on the scar tissue,
Yep.
and the scar tissue would hold that uterus in a suboptimal position, and that would impact the birth outcome for the next childbirth that she had, for the next pregnancy. So what we were doing was optimizing for her next pregnancy. We were also
Mm.
trying emotional release happens when you work on that on the uterus.
Yeah.
I ended up having a number of fertility-based clients, like clients who were trying to conceive, but for the most part, I was drawn to the postpartum recovery, side of things. Yeah, I heard all these stories and then flash forward and I was surrounded by doulas and midwives during my first pregnancy. I had an unassisted, undisturbed childbirth with my first, and then went on and had a second with undisturbed childbirth with my daughter. So I have it can be triggering to say I trigger myself when I say this, but I don't have birth trauma. I didn't have a traumatic birth. And
Amazing.
I think it's good to say sometimes because I think women like some young women need to hear that you can just have good experiences.
All young women need to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, and but it's tricky because there's so many poor experiences, and it's, if I could just wave a magic wand and just take women's pain
Yeah.
away. I'm deeply, like, motivated and passionate about women's health outcomes. I started my business after the first undisturbed birth. I had a hard postpartum. It
Mhm.
was really hard. I was trying to get back on my feet immediately. I was trying to make a cake for my husband. I was like I it was that independent, I can do anything, and I just
Yeah.
nursed a baby, like,
Oh, yeah.
it was a mess. I had a really rough one. Was trying to work out too soon, I was trying to do
Uh,
all that stuff. But flash forward to when he was 6 months, I, for financial reasons, felt like I had to go back to work.
mhm.
And I hated leaving him,
Mm.
and I decided after navigating trying to go back to work, you're overstimulated as a mom.
Uh,
You're going to massage people. You're like, I can't do that. My breasts are leaking milk. I'm pumping. I can't do this.
oh, god.
So I was excited to build my business. It wasn't building a business. It's a huge learning curve. So I basically built my own website in nap time mode and I
Mhm.
was staying up late trying to figure out all this domain stuff and all
Yeah.
the tech stuff that's
Oh,
hard.
yeah.
So
But
that's
then when
kind
you're
of how I
sleep deprived, like, "What?" Yeah.
yeah, that's how I got my start. I really wanted to replace my in-person income with
Mm.
online so I could work from anywhere, so I can be home with my son. And the rest is history. I haven't had to go back. I haven't had to
Yeah.
go there's been hard moments where I've considered, would it be easier to just
Yeah. Go get a job.
right.
Yeah. But your motivating factor to start your business was to be with your son more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and same for me. I had my daughter. I did not have a blissful birth experience or postpartum experience, but when the time came to go put her into daycare so I could go to my marketing job, legit panicked and quit my job, like, overnight,
Yeah.
and was like, "Okay, now I have to figure this out." And everybody listening to this podcast has probably heard my story, but that's when I became a postpartum doula, and I was like, "This is great. I can do this part-time and still be with my kids," and then even my transition into switching over to Doula Darcy and being a doula business coach was, like, more like I wanted more time for myself, more time with my kids, family, creating a business that served my life even more. And so I think what it comes down to, why I like you so much is I feel like we are just both out here and the name of my new program is Success Without Sacrifice. I think you and I both really embody that. We have successful businesses and we are just not around. We are not open to sacrificing. And maybe we have, and speaking for myself, I certainly have. I certainly worked too many hours and did all the things to put myself and my family last at times, but I've reached this point now, there's no more sacrificing anything, any moment of time, and I feel like you are very much the same. What would you do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's cool to think about. I definitely think that moment comes, right? It probably comes for every woman at a different time. That
Mm,
moment when it's like the line in the sand moment where you're
yeah.
like, I am not going to, oh, the sweat, blood, and tears thing.
Yeah,
I am not going to suffer for this, or I'm not going to
yeah.
overwork, or I'm not going to sacrifice my health, or I'm not. I think it comes down to charging sometimes, like what you're charging for what you're doing and valuing your time and
Mhm.
self-worth and self-respect. And I think sometimes that line in the sand can be scary, but I've also had a lot of success with digital offers, Darcy. So that changed everything for me. And I know that changed everything for you. So
Yeah.
once I had mostly a one-to-one model when I started my
Mhm.
business. And once I started to do one to many group programs and then one to many digital, I just realized how easy it could be to make money. And
Yeah.
I thought, what have I been doing this whole time? Because what is this? I think I shared this story on when you were on the podcast, on the Vital Mother podcast. I had a digital course do so successfully that it did $17,000 in one day,
Mhm.
and I was in an Uber in New York City, and I was, like, going to an entrepreneur event, and I was like, "What is my life? I'm shocked." I shook that day, I was in this Uber because I lived in New Jersey, so it was easy to just go to these, I don't know,
Well,
events,
yeah.
and I just thought all the sales were coming in. It was like 497, 497, 497, 497, and I just thought, and then I shook hands with people who are, like, known in the entrepreneurial space, like, I had
Mhm.
shook hands with Selena Soo, who's, like, a PR person
Oh,
that
love her.
day. Yeah, and I just thought, I am, like, entering this new realm of life, and I've never looked back. Like, now, once you taste digital offer sales and
Yeah.
the you just can't think about money and time and effort the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I just got chills because that's exactly it. Thinking that has been a huge part of my transformation of feeling that way. That's exactly right. Like those days when I talk about it all the time, like being at the beach and like checking my phone, like, what? I just made $1,000 for like I was on the beach.
I love it. I love it. People roll their eyes, but really there are entrepreneurs everywhere who are experiencing this.
Yes.
It's not eye roll. We can be curious about that.
Yeah, and I don't wanna I always say it takes work, it takes good copywriting, it takes good marketing to build the foundation, but then once you do, it's that money rolling in and that makes it very easy to be like, "I'm never going back." I sometimes think about, like, COVID, when the COVID lockdown happened, and nobody wanted a postpartum doula. I was like, "Oh, I could go back, like, I could try to call an old boss and get some kind of, like, work from home marketing gig," but I was like, "I will shrivel up and I can't have a boss?
What is that?
What? I
Wait.
have to enter a time sheet? No, I've tasted that digital course, passive income. I am not going back, and I think you and I are both so passionate about more women and mothers having that. It gives you such freedom for what you really want in life. For
Yeah.
me, that's like naps and skiing. I don't know what it is for you.
Yeah. Hey, I like to not have to look at the clock.
Mm.
I just like it. I like to not have to look at the clock a good chunk of the week. If I
Yeah.
just don't have to know what time it is, I am riding high. I'm like, this is
Um,
great. Because then you're not like stressed about getting the kids to do
yeah.
this by that time. It just seems like I thrive with less stress. There's less rushing around. It's just,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot of flexibility. And I'm a writer, so I just thrive with a lot of thinking space and creative
Mhm.
time. And yeah, I love to hear that you had that moment where you were like, "I can't go back." Yeah.
The bridges were burned, or the boats were burned, whatever that phrases. I loved the other day you told me you were like, "Oh, I'm a copywriter. I just like to go in this cave and write for hours at a time." I was like, "That how cool is that?" That's the other thing. I think we're both working in our zone of genius and have designed our lives to support that, which is such a, like, cool thing that we get to do. It's so good.
It is,
Um
it's wonderful, it's like, I w I it's something that I say, "I can't not." How could I not? How could I choose any other thing? Like, how could I do that? It's hard to ignore your strengths and your skills. They're always there.
Yeah, and then it doesn't feel like work when you're
Exactly. Yeah.
operating in that zone of genius, and I just love it so much. And one thing you talk a lot about is that your podcast is about how it's I love your podcast, with all these stories of people that are thriving as entrepreneurs, but also moms. So, can you talk about what made you start this podcast along this
Yes.
theme?
Yes, I can because I had the imprint subconsciously of the martyr mother.
Mm,
So the impression was that motherhood was martyrdom, that motherhood was tied to suffering, losing your body, losing your vitality, stress and dread and
mm,
pain and suffering and sacrifice is the
yeah,
word, right? So I had seen this not only had I seen that, I actually took that on,
yeah,
as we all take on our parents' stuff, right? So, I took this whole thing on, so when my son was born, even though I had these wonderful outcomes with pregnancy and birth, and I was doing all the things I thought were right, I still had this thing going on of I had the martyr mom thing
mm,
going on. Like, I'm
mhm,
suffering, I'm tired, I'm stressed, and so what that does is it creates resentment in your marriage or your relationships, whatever they are.
yeah,
It creates all kinds of negativity. And I had this process that I went through where I hired a house cleaner. And I know you started to get help with certain
yeah,
things. And I went through the same exact thing in my own way where it was like, I am not going to complain anymore. I'm literally going to get help. I hired a house cleaner and that changed everything. It took the burden off my marriage.
yeah,
It took all that negativity and complaining. It just took it right off of me.
yeah,
Of course, I had to get trained. I had to train myself to allow someone to clean my house, which was
yeah,
a process. Wow, this person's really going to clean things that I'm, like, embarrassed about. I don't know how to allow this kind of support, right?
yeah,
So it was, like, allowing support, allowing other people to come in and do these things that they wanted to do and they're getting paid to do, and so I started to feel like, wow, there was time and space for my creativity, there was time and
mm,
space for writing, there was time to connect with my son, there was time for marriage, there was time for walking or exercising, like,
yeah,
I didn't have to, quote, unquote, "slave on the kitchen floor," like,
right.
it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and we're, like, laughing about it, but, for me, it was years and years of processing, like, a process to get to the point that I am now, and I love that the conversation has gone this way because that whole mother as martyr and, like, I'm only a good mom if I'm suffer it's like you're only a good mom. What my imprint was like, you're only a good mom if you're suffering so that your kids are doing well and that or you're working so hard so your kids have dinner on the table, and I'm taking from myself to give to the kids, and that's what a good mother is. And I think it's very common, I'm sure people listening are identifying and have felt this way on some scale, but this spills over so hard into the doula world in that the doula as martyr. Like, I'm taking on this physical work with my clients. I'm on call for them. I'm taking on the emotional. There is so much that goes along that we do as doulas for our clients, and it can tip over into that martyr and sacrifice, working ourselves to the bone, like just overworking at the expense of ourselves and our family. This is what happened to me, I quit my corporate job because I wanted to be with my kids, and then I find myself working so many hours as a doula that I'm not with my kids, and but I wanna be a good doula, and it's the same cycle even more, and so that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing now, like helping doulas get this passive income coming in, get digital products and courses launched so that they can break out of that cycle and have success without sacrifice. And I think it's a little bit of a it's a not a little bit. It's a big mindset shift.
Yeah, yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking like if I think about the doulas listening or the sleep consultants listening, it's what are you gaining from the suffering? What's the gain? What's the benefit? What's there? Because
Yeah.
there's always something underneath those things. And a lot of the times, our sense of self worth and those underlying patterns impact the decisions we make in business.
Mm.
And going forward without examining them often prevents somebody from making different decisions about their offer, maybe their offer suite, maybe their
Mm.
pricing, what they're charging, and all these
Oh,
things.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's another way this manifests. Oh, a good doula like undercharges and like hell like we're bending over backwards and giving discounts, and in the end that's not serving anybody. And it's actually this whole bad energetic cycle. If we're modeling martyrdom for our clients as new moms,
True. Wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
it starts there. Oh, there's 3 more podcast episodes in here about this.
That's true.
But yeah, so okay, let's bring it back to copy and writing, and I think we just make I marketing hard. Or here's what I think. I don't make marketing hard. I think doulas make marketing hard because they think, "Oh, I have to sell." It's like marketing. I say marketing and they go to like used car salesmen, sleazy tactics. And the same with copywriting. This is not, you're not out there like psychologically getting people to buy things they don't need, or that's not what it is. How do you help your clients tap into their real voice so that their copy, so that they're writing, so that they're marketing, so that the brand they're putting out, say as doulas, is reflecting their authentic sorry, that is a really big question.
I'm going to go for it.
All right.
No, what I would say is that I think most of us have voice and then we have a copywriting voice that we develop.
Mm,
So, in terms of voice, it's if you think about just how you speak, tone, cadence, just how you would be conversational with someone. The easiest way to look at your voice objectively is to take something like a recording with a client or a podcast episode, put it into a transcription, and just look at the transcription. What are the words and phrases you're using? Use those on your website. Write how you speak. Don't be
mm.
afraid to be conversational. We need to strip away a lot of this formality, especially in I've seen it on doula websites before. It can be very like formal. Not I'm not gonna say medical, but you know what I'm talking about?
That's something I struggled with is I thought, "Oh, okay, I have to write a website," or even in my marketing days, I wasn't a copywriter, but I actually remember saying to one of my first bosses, like, he gave me copy to, like, proofread. Everybody in the office had to proofread. I was like, "This sentence structure is not." I was such a grammar nerd, and "This is copywriting, Darcy, like, we don't like, the grammar Norton's grammar rules don't apply." But even as a doula, even knowing that, like, when I sat down to write my doula website, I, like, came at it like I was writing a 5-page college essay. And even the same, I see it with doulas' social media posts. It's like we come at I don't know if it's public school or something, we're so trained to have an introductory paragraph and all these full sentences, and your copy for marketing has to be more conversational. And
100%.
yeah.
100%. It has to be conversational. You want to think about yourself sitting in the room with that perfect fit client. You
Mm,
guys are clicking, you feel connected, you're going back and forth naturally. There's no hesitation in your conversation. And so look at how you would speak in that way. It's personal, there's a personal touch. You're using words and phrases that you usually use.
yeah.
You can strip away all of that kind of like properness and
Yes.
just come down to the conversational level. And then there's the other thing with so there's the connecting to your voice and then making sure that's reflected on your website, in your emails, things like that. But then there's also what I say every single business owner has to develop a copywriting voice. And that's a little bit different. That voice is coming in at the end of the emails. That voice is coming in right above whatever button you're dropping. That
Mhm.
voice is you have to train yourself to do this and it's uncomfortable at first, but that voice is very direct.
Mm.
You're telling them what to do. You're telling them what next step to take. You're not saying, please, if you will, may you click the button. Like, it's not like that. You're telling them.
Oh, and you know what? That is something doulas do all the time. If you feel so inclined, reach out. I'm like,
Yeah.
"No. Click here to purchase.
Yes. Click
Click here to
here.
book a call."
Click here, buy now. We just have to trust that the person reading is mature and is making their own decisions and is has free will, which that's the way I approach it philosophically. The
Yeah.
person reading, I trust that this is an intelligent woman. If she doesn't want to buy now, she's not going to buy now. And that's the thing is I cut out every please. I cut out every if you're so inclined. I go straight to being direct and confident, clear. Yep.
And you know what? I talk about this a lot as doulas. There's this subconscious thing. If I'm hiring you to come to my birth, or if I'm hiring you to come into my home 3 days after I just had a baby, I want you to be confident and clear. I don't want you to be wishy-washy, and I think confidence is so key as a doula. You can be what am I trying to say? Like, any personality. You could be crunchy, you could be preppy, you can be anything, but you will get hired more if you are confident, and that has to come through in your copy, and I don't think it does for a lot of doulas.
Yes, this is actually one of the things I love to see my clients go through. It's not every client needs me in this way, but there's some times where a client's their own stuff around their confidence is they're not edging their copy forward because they're not as confident. There's something happens when sometimes when someone comes in and analyzes your copy or someone comes in and proposes like a different framework or a different structure for a certain page or a certain email, their level of the confidence that I would want to reflect on the page is almost, I'll find my clients some of them, not that they're not willing to go there, but it's almost like they're so modest and so thoughtful and they care so much. They're so honest and they're just modest. They're not the kind of people who are
Yes.
gonna be like, "This is" whereas I'm trained and I know we have to be honest and straightforward, of course, but also we need to let people know the truth about how this offer can really impact them and really
Mm,
change their lives or really improve their postpartum, let's just say, right?
yeah.
I find sometimes having an objective person to look at the copy can help so much.
Absolutely. Which is why perfect segue, I was just thinking so you guys can tell Jillian is a genius, and not only are you an excellent copywriter, which you'll all know if you go follow her on Instagram and head to her website, jillian-anderson.com, but you're highly trained, you've done all the things to in copywriting for sales pages, and so you have generously offered after I asked you, to anyone who signs up for this next round of Success Without Sacrifice. If you sign up before February 7th, you will get a Jillian Anderson copy audit of your sales page for your digital offer that you'll work with me on. So I am so excited because watching you go through a sales page, like, it's just I don't know. I've learned so much from just chatting with you, And even just even so I think everybody listening needs to go follow you on Instagram just to witness, like, how you write on Instagram. Like, it's really powerful to see that and soak it up and take it for your own business. So everybody go follow Jillian on and what is your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is at Jillian A. Anderson.
Okay. I knew there
Yeah.
was I will put it in the show notes.
Yeah, but what I wanna say is that I, Darcy, am trained in the long form sales page. So I became a certified sales page writer
Mhm.
after having
Who knew that was a thing?
No, I know, and I had done a bunch of my own offers and sales pages. I had started to coach clients on it, and then I thought, "I need to explore this long form sales page certification." So, I'm like a technician when it comes to the order of a sales page,
Yeah.
the psychology of the opening, and the whole flow from top to bottom. It's really surprising how if you, like, specifically move this here, do this here, swap this thing, like, it really can open up a whole new level of sales,
Yeah.
because the person reading is you have to meet them in a certain journey, and you have to we're walking down a certain journey, and so I'm so stoked to analyze your client's sales page for these ladies who sign up for Success Without Sacrifice. I will say that when someone comes to me for a sales page analysis and they come through my website, I'm charging $2,000 to do the work on the sales page.
Yeah.
But that's because I've gone to that level of technician with that.
Oh my god, and it's worth every penny, which is why I'm just so excited that this is a bonus I can offer to anyone signing up for Success Without Sacrifice because there's such value in it, and I know it's only going to help them so much. So, thank you so much for offering that, and the bonus is not only are you certified excellent copywriter, like, you have this doula birth Mayan abdominal massage background, like, you get the doula, childbirth, postpartum world, which not many people do.
I just gotta
Mm.
chill. I gotta chill, Darcy, because I just wanna say this really quick. I'm so pleased, lately because I feel like I'm making an impact in the area that I am passionate about, but
Yeah.
it's this weird sideways way that I had no idea. Like, if you would have told Jillian in high school and college, like, "You will write copy for or analyze copy and write copy for, women's health professionals and birth professionals," like, I would have been like, "Wait, what?" But I truly feel like I'm connected to these women signing up for these offers. Like, my clients are my impact too. And so all of the women who you're going to work with as they're developing their digital offers or as they're scaling their doula businesses, I feel connected to that impact when I get my hands on
Yeah.
some of the copy.
Yeah. Ugh, and I think that's just another little piece of building a digital business, like, the impact that you can have without working 90 hours a week. It's just I can't even put it truly into words, but I don't know. You're doing big things, and I love that we're both helping other women do that too in their own lives. Again, thank you for this offer of making this bonus. So everybody go sign up for Success Without Sacrifice before February 7th. Get in there so you get this super special. And if you're listening and you're like, I already signed up, you'll don't worry. You're good.
You'll get it
um,
too. Yeah.
you'll get it too. But back to the fact that you get doulas and childbirth, like this is why when you came into my doula village and did our guest training in there, everybody was just like, "This is amazing," because I have other marketing experts come in or speakers or just we all as doulas have tried to hire a coach or a bit small bit what's that thing? SCORE, like those free retired professionals. I
Yeah.
that just you go talk to them, they have no idea what a doula is or how this is a business or how or to give any advice that's remotely helpful. So, like to have someone like you that's a copywriter that deeply understands birth in this world is just rare to find. Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to come on this podcast. Everybody can go check out Jillian's podcast, the Vital Mother podcast. I'll put all the links in the notes. What else, Jillian, do you need to tell the
I just want to say thank you.
Oh,
I'm so grateful because I just feel so connected to your people and connected to
mm,
you and just connected to what the work that you do. So I'm just grateful to be here and
yeah,
to enter the mix. And yeah, thank you so
yeah.
much, Darcy.
You are welcome, and we'll have to have you back for all these other conversations that that we're spurting out.
I love it.
Awesome. So thank you, Jillian.